Alrighty, Nick. Another long and toilsome journey to acquire the ability to record audio at a reasonable volume today. But we figured it out.
Hopefully.
I mean, honestly, your audio still sounds bad, which I know you're way more like paranoid about it than I am, but I don't know what to tell you about that. I think it's more just because like your voice is going to crack a lot, and there's really nothing your computer can do about that.
I know, man. I tried to mess around the settings to make my voice be a little bit more passable, but for those listening, you're just going to have to deal with it. So.
You're just going to have to get over it, right? Yeah.
Yep.
No, I'm just
we'll
kidding.
Get there maybe someday.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, one of these days, dude, we're going to know what we're actually doing here, especially me. I'm pretty technologically illiterate. If I could afford somebody to just set this whole thing up for me and I just sit down and chat, like that would be ideal. But I'm also a little bit Scroogey. Yeah, Scrooge. I'm a little bit of a Scrooge, so to speak, an Ebenezer Scrooge. And, yeah, also just dumb.
A little bit. But it's okay.
Yeah. Well, dude, that was loud. I'm sorry. Well, last week, dude, I'm sorry. Last week we wanted to get on and talk a little bit because some pretty crazy things happened. And then I didn't have access to a computer, which put a halt on that. So I figured we could talk a little bit about it this week if you want.
For sure, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could. I mean, obviously, it's something that's on everyone's mind.
Yeah.
I mean, I imagine I can assume what you're referring to.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been most of what's been in the news, what's been on social media, what's been online. It's mostly what everyone's been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I feel like we have some nuanced opinions on it, or at least, I have my own perspective on the whole situation and kind of what it stems from. I don't think enough people are talking about the root of the issue.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Do you kind of just want to give like a quick synopsis on what we're talking about, I guess?
Yeah, dude. So I have no agenda for today. I rarely ever do when we talk, as you know. But yeah, so basically, Charlie Kirk was a very popular, very very vocal conservative voice. Yeah, he would go to different college campuses and just talk to people, talk to students, ask them questions, ask their opinions on things, and then share his opinion on things, and they'd usually have a conversation. And I would say probably 9 times out of 10, it was very, very friendly. Everybody was friendly. If a liberal student were to come up and talk, he would hear them out, talk to them, and then at the end of the day, at the end of the conversation, maybe they agree, maybe they disagree, maybe they find some common ground. But things were pretty amicable after most conversations. But for some reason, some far left extremists, which seems like it's just more and more leftists nowadays, are just absolutely extreme and violent, decided that he was a fascist and a Nazi and like all these crazy things they would say. Like how many times I've heard people say Charlie Kirk was a fascist. It is insane. In what world does a fascist go out to college campuses and let somebody tell them what their opinion is? Like, hey, okay, I disagree with you. What do you think? Let's talk about it. Like, how is that fascist? Anyways, eventually, as anybody with a brain could have seen, some crazy loon, hears, oh, he's literally Hitler. Oh, he's a fascist. Oh, he's a Nazi. Oh, he's evil. Oh, he spreads hate. And they get to the point where they're like, well, if he's that bad, why don't we just kill him? And then they assassinated him as he was on a college campus just talking to people. There's nothing violent about it. Was one of the most peaceful dudes. Really, he was one of the most peaceful guys. And here's the other thing. He wasn't even a right-wing extremist. He was pretty normal.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
He was pretty normal on most things. He was very friendly, very, very, he seemed like a very naturally virtuous person. Obviously, I never met him. I do know people who know him or knew him rather, and they're like, yeah, he's super like naturally virtuous, right? Good guy. Maybe disagreed with him on things, but very easy person to talk to. But like he was not an extremist by any means. I mean, he was pro-Israel for one, right? He was very welcoming to homosexual people, very, very welcoming to people who were maybe more like trans people. Not saying that he necessarily would agree with them or like with their lifestyle, but he wasn't an extremist in the sense of like excluding them or anything. There's many times he would have gay people, around him. I could be wrong because I was not like a huge follower of him, but like I seem to remember him. He would have gay people on his show, right? And so it's not like he was even that extreme, but I think the thing is he was so effective. So many people enjoyed listening to him that it really got under the skin of the enemy, and I think that's why they targeted him more than anything. But anyways, it was a huge tragedy. It was absolutely sick and disgusting. It was vile. It was so gruesome. His wife and kids were there. Yeah, and all because somebody had a different opinion. Oh, but he's the fascist. The guy who murdered him in front of his wife and kids for sharing his opinion. Oh, they're not fascist, even though they're the ones doing what is a stereotype, or it's a key characteristic of a fascist ideology is to
It's suppression of opposing ideas.
It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, and honestly, I think one of the reasons that he was killed, I mean, this obviously came from a radical ideology, which, I mean, the temperature has slowly been raising throughout the years, and it was only a matter of time before it's come to this point. I don't think people realized how violent it has already been, that the culture has already been, especially coming from that side. I mean, if you're familiar with Steven Crowder, he kind of started what Charlie Kirk did, or he would go to the college campuses and have like free exchange of ideas, things like that. Steven Crowder was the first one to do that. He actually had to stop doing it because there were multiple threats against his life, multiple attempts on his life, and he just couldn't do it anymore. For his own safety, he was not able to. So it's like this kind of fear of your life just for expressing your ideas, which many of them aren't even radical. The problem is people are so categorical that they don't actually want to, listen to your nuanced opinion. It's more of, if you disagree with me, there must be something wrong with you. I mean, ultimately, a lot of it is narcissism as well, where people think like, okay, if you have a differing opinion than I do, then there must be something wrong. Like there's something morally wrong going on here. It's not that you have a different worldview, you were raised a different way, maybe you're a different religion or whatever it may be. There are people have different opinions for different reasons, and for some things, yes, there is it's pretty black and white where it's between okay, what's true and what's not true, but other things are more nuanced, and I think as a country we've lost the ability to understand nuance, and maybe that's from a lack of critical thinking. I mean, that probably could be part of what it is, that people are raised, and especially young people are raised to be categorical and to just be very focused on not necessarily what's true. They're not raised on principle, on what is true. It's more of, okay, what do I feel? How does this make me feel? What is my individual reality?
It's all like so your personal truth.
Right. Exactly. It's so that is your reality. It's whatever you want it to be. That's why, I mean, things like transgenderism is very prominent today. I mean, Gen Z, I think it was like 20% of Gen Z identifies as some form of LGBT now.
I have no idea, but that's insane.
Yeah, there is a statistic on that Gen Z is very, very LGBT. So I think that's why, because people are not raised to be principled. You don't believe in truths that are higher than your own, I guess, moral compass, or not. Maybe that's not the right word.
Well, a lot of times I think people chase their desires rather than chasing virtue, right? And I don't know if that's somewhat what you're getting at, but I think it certainly has a role to play. Like if somebody has a gay desire well, I have a desire, therefore it is good because I desire it, and what I desire is going to be good. I want it. Do what you want. But
Hmm.
that's not at all how you should approach life. There's many things you want that you should not pursue, that you should not indulge in, right? I might want to go crack a six pack every night. That's not a
Right.
good thing to do. You shouldn't do that.
Hmm.
That is damaging to you, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all these things. It's not good.
Hmm.
I might want to just roll over and sleep in. But no, when my alarm goes off at 3:45 in the morning to get up to go to work, I'm getting up to go to work. I may not want to, but that's what you have to do. And we have become such a culture that just indulges in everything because they see the desire in of itself as being a good thing. And yeah, it can be very polarizing because my desires are going to be different than your desires. But if my desires are good and your desires are different, then you must not be good. You know what I mean? Or I
Right.
don't know.
Yeah.
You kind of
Right.
get where I'm going with that.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like it's an interaction between the intellect and the will,
Yeah.
and ultimately your intellect can. I mean, so you do have your natural passions and your natural desires from your will. Like, okay, you understand that it's you need to be productive, you need to make money, have a living, so you have to get up in the morning. Maybe your natural will, your passions, okay, I want to sleep in because my body is tired. But then you
Mm-hmm.
understand through your intellect and your reason that you need to get up in order to support yourself, even though that's not what your body is telling you in that
Mm-hmm.
very moment. So that extends to the spiritual, where, okay, if you're raised, and this is why living in a Christian country, Catholic country, is so important, because I do identify with certain principles and certain teachings. And that's why the teachings of the church are so important, because that
Mm-hmm.
can extend to the spiritual. Okay, what do I want to do in a moral aspect? What am I driven to? Is it my emotion? Is it my own personal judgment? Okay, what do I want for myself? What do
Mm-hmm.
I think is good? Or what does God think is good? What is the common good?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you understand that, you're more likely to use your intellect and your reason to say, okay, I need to do this for my spiritual self. I need to do this for my soul. I need to improve my soul, whatever it may be. And that could be separate from maybe what you want in the moment. That's why we still pray, even though we don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
That's why that's extremely important, because we understand using our intellect and reason that that's very important for our set of principles, which is to know, love, and serve God.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the problem when people don't have that, and they're so warped by their principles ultimately being what I consider to be hateful, what I consider to be good. If somebody's contrary to that good, then it's almost like an existential issue. If
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense. I don't know if I'm making sense that way, but
No, no,
um,
I
yeah,
think it does make sense what you're saying, and I wanted to bring it back to Charlie Kirk
yeah,
for a second. And there was because I think it's relevant to what you're saying. There was a clip I saw of him, and I don't remember when this was, but and there was a young man. I don't know how old he was, maybe like 19, 20, something like that. I don't know. And his dad was with him, and his dad was very liberal, and the son was very conservative. And so the father asks Charlie Kirk a question. He's like, I have one question for you. Like,
I
a
think
house.
I saw that video.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's like, a house
right.
divided cannot stand. And I'm super liberal, and my son is super conservative, and our house is torn, right? And a nation can't stand, and a house can't stand. All you kind of get what his question was like. How
Right,
do we
right.
navigate this? And, he had said things like, I don't know how he turned out this way. We raised him to be more liberal, stuff like that. And, uh,
Mhm.
and then, the son was saying something similar the other way about his dad. And Charlie was like, well, look, like, you grew up with a different set of experiences, right? The older guy, he grew up knowing that the government could do good and just did not, right? They could do good, and so and then the younger man lived his whole life seeing that the government just doesn't do what it could do. Um, and so his whole point with it was like, you need to try to understand each other and see where the other one is coming from, because you love each other, you are family, and that's way more important than how you view the world, because you're going to view the world based on what you observed. Not exclusively, like there's other things that impact your worldview as well, but like if how you see the government behaving and your take on how the government should behave in the future is largely going to be based off how the government behaved when you were being raised. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh yeah, that guy was a fascist, right? Because he said that you should love one another despite your political differences. Like, what a fascist dude, crazy. You know, I don't know. I had a point with that, and then I kind of lost it, but it'll drive you up a wall, dude. It's unbelievable, and they murdered this guy.
Mm-hmm.
They just freaking assassinated him in a gruesome fashion in front of hundreds of people. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, I remember the moment that I heard about it. I was like, I was in such a bad mood after that. I was at work. I couldn't even really work. I mean, I could, but it was just like it's just something was just in the back of my mind the whole time. At least that's what it felt like. I don't know. I just had this like pit in my stomach. I don't know, because like you were saying, it was really gruesome. And one thing I do want to talk about, and because I mean everybody already knows, you know, what happened. I'm sure most people have seen the video at this point.
Yeah,
so we don't really have to touch on that. Yeah, it's been talked about a lot. The main thing I feel like not enough people talk about, and some people have, is I think Charlie Kirk had a very unique legacy.
Yeah, he
in
definitely
that
did.
I think he was one of the most instrumental people in changing the culture. Because if you really think about it, even like 5-10 years ago, you know, there was the whole cancel culture. You couldn't, like, conservatives could not speak their mind. I think a lot of the LGBT issues were very one-sided. Like, it was, most of the institutions were pushing some of these ideologies. Like, it was, the left's ideals were very normalized, and they were in the central public eye. And it was considered fringe for you to have contrary opinions or to be a conservative. And I think the organization of Turning Point USA specifically, I think did so much for the culture of the United States. And I think one of the main reasons is because think about when the culture actually started shifting. And this is my experience. I mean, I'm sure there were many, many other factors. But in my experience, when I started to see the shift was when people like Ben Shapiro, Michael Knowles, Matt Walsh. I mean, these other guys, you know, these very prominent conservative figures, they started making more nuanced arguments, and they had these opinions that maybe people hadn't heard of at this point. And who was the one that was giving them a large platform? Of course, the Daily Wire was a thing, right? But I think Turning Point USA would enable many of these voices to go to various college campuses and different places throughout the country. They would go on these speaking tours and things like that. They gave these prominent conservatives, or he gave these prominent conservatives a larger platform than they already had. And many of these, you know, these arguments they would make, they went viral. Like many of the arguments they were making would go viral. And you see some of these opinions and arguments become more mainstream that originated from these speakers that he gave a platform to. And then they grew. They were able to grow. I think he enabled and helped the Daily Wire to grow more into what it is now. And, you know, then they have the platform and the means to come out with movies like What is a Woman and things like that, like Daily Wire, which I think was very effective in what it did too. Did you see that movie, by the way?
Yeah.
What is a Woman?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like things like that. So in my opinion, I mean, not even to mention Charlie Kirk and the role that he had to get Donald Trump elected. And
Huge.
because if it wasn't for him, yeah, Donald Trump would have not been elected. And he helped the right win their first popular vote, you know, I think since Ronald Reagan.
A
Maybe there was
long time.
another one after that. Yeah.
Very long time, yeah.
So it's a very long time. So I think that could have been one of the reasons why he was killed as well, is because he was very effective at what he did, and he was one of the leaders, the prominent leaders of the conservative movement. And even though, like, yes, I very much do agree with, his means and methods and how open he was to conversation, I didn't always agree with every single thing he said, or maybe how he delivered it sometimes. Yeah, but at the end of the day, Turning Point USA, I mean, did what its name says.
Yeah, it really was
a turning point. They enabled it to be a turning point.
For sure.
For the country. So I just think his legacy is way bigger than people realize.
Yeah, it's not going to die out. It's something that will live on, and I think it's going to grow even more as time goes on. Right? This was like throwing gasoline on a fire. This event, right? Yeah. I think, Charlie Kirk has been a major piece of the culture for a very long time. I remember being in high school, and this is so funny. Like, you remember those memes where it'd be like "checkmate liberals," and then it would have his face really shrunk down?
Yeah,
it's so funny.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. He just is like such a normal guy. He had such like a good sense of humor about that kind of stuff too. But no, it's something I really liked about Charlie Kirk, and obviously I disagreed with him on a lot of things. That's no secret. Anybody that knows me knows that I disagreed with Charlie Kirk on a great number of things. I also agreed with him on a great number of things, probably way more than I disagreed with him on, but like the Israel thing was a huge point of disagreement. And he was obviously a Protestant. Of course, there's people saying like he was in RCIA possibly. Like, we don't really know for a fact, but he was obviously coming around to some key parts of the faith, like Mary, for example. But just in general, like those are some things I disagreed with him throughout most of his career on, like Israel, and then his Protestant take on stuff. But one thing I loved about him and respected about him a ton was that he did bring in Christianity to a lot of his conversations, a lot of his views on things. And even though it was like a Protestant form of Christianity, maybe even like evangelical form of Christianity, he emphasized the importance of having Christian values, and that was like so central to who he was. He wasn't just a political guy, right? I would say even more than politics, he was defined more by his faith than his politics, right? There are politicians who are Christian, and you just kind of would never know it. But he was like almost the opposite. You know what I'm saying? Had a hard time, saying what I was trying to say. But I admired that about him, and I think that had a great effect on a lot of people. I think that had a great effect on the culture. Our culture is obviously becoming more and more polarized every single day. There's more atheists and more communists and whatever, but there's also more devout Christians every single day, especially in the young male population of the United States and places like France. There is like young men specifically are coming to Christianity and traditional Christianity in droves compared to what there ever has been. And I think it's at least partly because of people like Charlie Kirk. He was so influential in the secular world, but he also brought the faith into that secular world, which is how it's supposed to happen. The faith is supposed to influence the secular world, not the other way around. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I think that's something we all need to aspire to be more like and to take as a more serious part of our life, is bringing our faith into the world and being vocal about it, not being apologetic about it. Christianity is the one true religion. The Holy Catholic Church is the fullness of truth. That is the one true church founded by Jesus Christ in 33 AD. There should be no apologies for that. There is no shyness about that. Yeah, you might lose your job, whatever, okay? St. Peter was crucified upside down, quo vadis, right? Bartholomew was skinned alive. Okay, yeah, you might lose your job because you said Viva Cristo Rey. Like, who cares, dude? Get over it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Get over it. Like, you're going to have to make some sacrifices. Charlie Kirk was murdered. You want to have an impact on the world? Do you really want to have an impact on the world? You want to talk about it or you want to be about it? That's another huge thing. I'm getting on a little bit of a rant here. We have so many people that just talk and talk and talk and talk about all the things they want to do, and they talk about the influence they want to have on the world and the impact and how they want to change people's lives, and they do nothing. They sit around and they complain. They're not even disciplined themselves. So even if they're not even putting themselves in a position to maybe be able to change the world because they're undisciplined. They don't do anything. They just talk about it, and they can be all inspired. And how many people have I heard who are like, oh, I'm inspired by Charlie Kirk, and I want to, be like him or maybe his wife or something. It's like, that's good. You should be. Like, he was a good dude. He was a very good dude. He was very influential, very inspirational. But the problem is they have inspiration without discipline, and they go nowhere. So, yeah, I'm ranting. I'm just like, bro, just
no.
rant.
I mean, it's
I'm just ranting,
you have really
dude.
good points.
Literally,
Yeah, and yeah,
just do something, dude.
mm-hmm.
I've heard so many people who are like, oh, I hate where I work because I can't talk about the faith or whatever. Just do it, bro. You might get fired. Whatever. Get over it. Until everybody just acknowledges that, yeah, you might get fired. Like, if everybody who felt that way just did it, they couldn't fire everybody, and you might actually change the culture.
I think your mic is cutting out a little bit. I don't know if that's just me.
Really? Maybe I'm getting too loud. It's cutting out.
No. I think you're fine for the most part. But no. I think I completely agree with everything you're saying. And honestly, when it comes to like doing something, it doesn't even have to necessarily be okay, like doing something physical out in the public space or even at your work. Like, you shouldn't ever be afraid to speak the truth. And it's like, it is kind of upsetting. I don't know, maybe this is just a pessimistic view of it, but it's like people are saying, oh, I'm so inspired by Charlie Kirk, and so I want to go out and do something. Well, it's like, why aren't people still inspired by, the death and life of Jesus Christ? Mm-hmm. And thinking about everything that he did and understanding how powerful mortification, self-denial, penance, things like that, prayer. These are the things that Jesus taught. And that's, I think, one of the most effective things that we can do. I know everyone says it. Everyone says, oh, pray for Charlie Kirk, pray for his family. Like, of course.
Yeah, and you should, yeah.
But everybody says it, but do they truly understand how powerful it really is? So one other nuance people don't talk about either, and I know a lot of these episodes I keep mentioning the name Father Ripperger. It's just he's just good. He's really good priest. I just love his talks. Yeah, he's great. And one thing he actually talks about is the dichotomy or the powers both of prayer but also of other evils in America that people don't talk about, like the occult, for example, mm-hmm. or Satanism, black masses, things like that. There's actually a lot of that in the U.S. now, way more than people think. I mean, there's a black mass underneath every major city in the U.S. Mm-hmm. for the most part.
It's true.
They do have real power on how society conducts themselves and just how much of God's grace is prominent. And Father Ripperger talks about that. He mentions that there are real powers at play that are affecting our country. And you could say that what happened to Charlie Kirk and, the threats that many other prominent people on the right and in the Catholic space or Christian space, the fear that they've had, this is overall just a result or a consequence of that aspect, where my whole point in saying this is there's so much evil that happens that people don't see, and that increases the need for prayer even more, mm-hmm. because you have to offset much of the evil that's in America. So the need to make reparations, the need to do penance is significant. It's right
huge,
now.
Yeah.
And we are not going to save this country unless we do that. And honestly, the only reason why, in my opinion, America hasn't already seen some kind of chastisement or persecution, whatever it may be, or we're still functioning, is because of Mother Mary. And I think that she has kept back the hand of her son. And she's trying to give us a chance to do so. So we really need to understand that, respect it, and, be appreciative of everything Mother Mary is doing for our country. And we need to give back. I think that's the main thing. And honestly, I think back, and I know I'm kind of ranting a little bit myself, but
No, go for it, dude.
yeah, I think back to, in the Old Testament. Think of when the Israelites came to the Promised Land, and they lived under the judges before they actually established the kingdom of Israel. Think about how often they turned against God. They started worshiping idols. They lived in sin. And then God would send somebody to conquer them, and they would live under the oppression of pagans. Then, they would pray for God's deliverance, and then he would send a judge who would come and liberate them from their oppressors. And then the cycle would start over again, and then they would worship idols again, and then so on and so forth. My point is that God will only allow things to get so far before he will send some kind of punishment, some kind of chastisement or persecution. And America is getting to that point. I, obviously, as a layperson, I cannot make a reasonable judgment on when that will be, or if it will even happen at all. Maybe Mother Mary will save us. But you have to realize that Scripture and the Bible gives us an understanding, or it kind of an understanding of how God works and how he thinks, in a way. Obviously, we're never truly going to understand. But it will get to a point where we need to beg for his forgiveness in order to save our country. So, I don't know. I'm really worried for America in general. And, that I offer every rosary I say for America, for its culture, for the West in general, that will turn back to God.
Dr. Marshall just recently released a book called Christian Patriot. And it seems hugely relevant. I can't remember. I think it was released right before Charlie Kirk was assassinated, if I remember right.
Yeah, he just came out with it.
Yeah, it was like a few days
about it,
before, or maybe, I can't remember if it was a few days before or after. But point is, I have not read it yet. I would like to, and hopefully will soon. But obviously, a big part of it is that it's not good enough to just be a patriot. It's not good enough to just love America, right? To just love your country. It's not good enough to just love your state. But you must love the Lord Jesus Christ above all things, with all your heart and all your soul. And then from that, you love your country. If you want to be a true patriot, if you want to truly save your country, you will save your own soul. If you want to be the best patriot you could possibly be, become a saint. Reform your life, quit watching porn, quit being lazy, quit being a glutton, quit being addicted to your phone and alcohol and drugs, marijuana. Quit all that crap. Just stop. Pick up your rosary, go to church, develop some kind of prayer life. You don't even, it's not like we're not all going to be like Padre Pio or Maximilian Kolbe, but we can all be saints. God gives us what we need in order to become saints. We just have to live our life in conformity with it. So I'm not going to sit here, and I don't mean to imply that you need to fast for 40 days and 40 nights straight, but just live a good Christian life. Utilize the sacraments, go to church. If you want to save your country, that is the way to do it. That is the way to do it. Because if you become a saint, you are going to sanctify those around you. And if you're not a saint, if you're not living a holy life, if you're not living a virtuous life, you can go to college campuses, you can talk to people, you can do all these big things, but you're not going to impact the world the way you really want to, the way you think you are. You're going to have a greater impact by simply being a saint, right? By being a little flower, right?
I was just thinking of Saint Therese. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Uh-huh.
mean, would Pius X say she was like the greatest saint of the 20th century or something like that?
Or like the modern
Or
era.
the modern
Yeah.
era?
I
Yeah, I
forget.
don't remember what year she had died, but like she didn't do like anything special, so to speak. That was like her whole book, or her whole what do you call it? A testimony of life, I think is what it's
It's the
called.
little way, or
Yeah,
I think that's what it was called.
yeah, the little way. It's literally just do what God asks of you and do it to the best of your ability and be content with it, because those little things are going to be what has the greatest impact, because that's what God wants you to do. And it's not prideful. It's not out of pride. It's not I want to go change the world, and so to do that, I'm going to go run for president and neglect your duties of state to do that because you think you're going to have a bigger impact. No, become a saint and everything else is going to work out.
It's just crazy. You just straight up read my mind. Like the whole time in the beginning when you were saying that, like I was thinking of Saint Therese, and that you can do the simple things, and the many times the little things mean the most. Think of the greatest saints, of the church that are, venerated, revered these to this day. Um, Many of them were not educated. They lived very simple lives.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I mentioned, doing reparation and penance, because that's what many of these saints were very good at,
Mm-hmm.
is doing penance.
Mm-hmm.
I also think of Saint John Vianney, because you're saying that one of the best things you can do is be a saint, live in sanctity, you know, live a virtuous life. Because I think of Saint John Vianney,
Mm-hmm.
and he lived. Obviously, he had many impacts. He had
Mm-hmm.
many practical impacts, like building his church and everything, and just the community of ours where he was.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing he was very good at was doing penance, and he
Mm-hmm.
was such a pious person,
Mm-hmm.
and he had such a significant and devout relationship with God that he would convert people just by them seeing him,
Yeah.
like just by looking at him.
Mm-hmm.
People that traveled to ours and under, their families would be concerned about their souls. And then one way or another, they would get them to go to and see St. John Vianney, and he just a gaze moved their soul.
Mm-hmm.
So like, think of how much you could do if you led by example and you lived a pious life. And, I'm not going to say you're ever going to get to the level of St. John Vianney. That's not, obviously that's the goal, but it's not as realistic for everybody. But ultimately, grace is what moves people's hearts.
Mm-hmm.
It's not how much you go out and, give hour-long speeches, or it's not about always the practical things you do, which oftentimes God will use the practical means as in order to carry out his active will. It's not to say you shouldn't do those things, but that should not be your main priority.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just always have this thought in my head, in the back of my head, like people always say, oh, send prayers, then send thoughts and prayers. And it's always true, but I mean, do people really think about that enough? Or do they really mean it? Or is it
Yeah.
just something that people say? I want to be I want to be as charitable as I can to people that do say it, and I want to believe that they really mean it.
But a lot of people do just say it. That is true.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They just say it's kind of just like for example, I think it's kind of odd where like if you sneeze, maybe like I have certain people I know that are atheists, and if you sneeze, they say bless you,
Yeah.
which I guess it's not like really the same thing, but it's like it's kind
Well,
of
it
like
is. It's God bless you. Because you're
yeah,
sick.
so that's what I'm saying. They say God bless you, but if they don't really believe, they're just saying it purely for a cultural reason, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's that's a good parallel, but it's kind of
No,
what I'm
I
getting
get
at,
what you're
where
saying. I get what you're saying.
yeah, it's just that's what you say on a cultural level. That's just like what the expectation is for you to say. But do they really mean it? And do they really understand how powerful that it really is?
Yeah. I know exactly what you're saying. It's a lot of talk. Just in general, the culture is a lot of talk and very little action. Right? It's a lot of like, well, why don't people do this or whatever, or like you're saying, talking about praying, very little actual praying. I would rather somebody pray for me every day of their life and never tell me, never even say anything, than somebody to tell me they're praying for me and never actually do it, right? Like, I don't care to know. It doesn't matter. You don't have to tell me. Just do it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Or I guess that was maybe a bad example, because maybe that sounds selfish, but please just pray for me, guys. but,
Yeah.
but like, take it for anything, like America. Like, quit saying you're praying for America if you're not praying for America. I know so many people, like, and I'm guilty of it too. Like, there's been many times when I say, like, oh, like, I'll definitely, like, pray for you, and then it just totally skips my mind. It's obviously not that much of a priority for me, and it should be. It needs to be. It has to be. That's my own fault. So I don't want to come out and, like, make it sound like I'm just saying everybody else is bad and I'm a saint. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's just some self-reflection that these are things that we need to be better at. Me, you, everybody. We all need to be better at it. Because if we want to save the country, if we want to save the world, we have to start by saving our own soul. And you have to take those kinds of things way more seriously. Take not sinning, and take praying and living a good, virtuous life. Like, those three things, I guess it's really kind of two things, basically all one and the same. But, like, that is going to impact the world so great. And everything that comes is going to be an effect of that. You know, giving grand speeches and stuff is going to become more efficacious because you are virtuous, because you've lived a good life. People are going to be more, I guess, not devoted to you, but more drawn to you, more persuaded by you, because they see, like, your disposition is peaceful, and you're not a hypocrite. You know, you desire what is truly good, and people are drawn to that. You could have the greatest intellectual opinion ever, but if you're just a scoundrel, like a lot of people, most people, I would say, don't care. Andrew Tate, for example. Andrew Tate's very intelligent. I don't think anybody denies that Andrew Tate is a very smart man. And some people are drawn to him because he has a lavish lifestyle, and that's just our culture nowadays. But a lot of people are very not drawn to him because he's an extremely immoral human. You know, that just is one example. You know, think about how much of an impact he could have if he lived a extraordinarily virtuous life. Think about that, the impact that charisma he has, how God would utilize that. You know, if he allowed God to utilize it. But he doesn't, because he pimps out girls online.
You know what makes me think of like the apostles? I sometimes wonder, like, even specifically when I'm meditating on the descent of the Holy Ghost, and how the Holy Ghost filled the apostles, and they went out and converted the world. I always wonder, like, how were they able to do that?
Dude,
like,
they were fishermen,
that's a feat in of
carpenters.
itself, and it's like how many people, I think, did it say that St. Peter converted in a single day? On, like, the first day of preaching, he converted thousands, or whatever it was. I don't know how much, but just the speed and the efficacy. It's like, how I wonder how they were able to do that. And I really think it's based on what you were saying. It's like these men were filled with the Holy Ghost. They were saints. They were some of the greatest men to ever walk the earth. People were obviously drawn to them. So and especially, like, think of the circumstances of what these men did. Like, they went into a pagan empire, one that oppressed them. And also, not even to mention, this is kind of a little bit of a tangent, but, like, not to mention that the culture was so different. Like, the Roman culture, the whole idea of like denying yourself, doing penance, and living in the spirit of poverty was, like, unheard of. It's, like, crazy.
Yeah,
you're, like, crazy if you believe that. Yeah, in the Roman Empire. So it's like they went out into a different culture, different belief. Pagans, and it converted thousands in a short amount of time, and that's because they were virtuous people.
Mm.
So I don't know. I guess I feel like we've really hit the point home with that. You know,
Yeah. Saint
moral of the
Joseph of
story, you know,
Cupertino.
do what you're supposed to do.
Saint Joseph Cupertino was like known for being dumb. Like he had a reputation for not being smart.
Right.
But he was such a holy guy that his impact, I mean, he's a saint. People pray to him before they take exams because they're like, please, St. Joseph Cupertino.
Yeah, I wish I knew about him when I was in college, but I found out about it later. Like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
but I think in order to get there, one thing specifically about prayer is just maybe another thing that people don't think about enough, or maybe don't realize or don't know about, is you have to really believe that the prayer will work and that will achieve the outcome that you're asking for. You know, how many times in the Bible does our Lord say, "Do not be afraid, I will be with you"? And if, you know, seeking you shall find, knocking it shall be opened unto you. If you just ask, like, just think about how effective prayer is. Like, you really have to believe it. If you just pray without true intention and true belief, it's not going to be as effective. And who knows if your prayers will be answered. That's why it's very important that when you go about it, that you truly believe and have faith. And a lot of that is, you know, the virtue of hope. You know, faith and hope. It's like mainly those two. Specifically in prayer. Obviously, there's some charity to it as well, but you know, having faith it's going to work, having hope that it will work, and having the faith to do it all together. You know. I don't know.
Yeah, man. I don't know, dude. We live in very weird times, and yeah, we have to do something to change our culture. I think that's
and I think sorry,
no,
I don't
go ahead.
mean to cut you off. Yeah. Also, I mean, we've been talking for a while, and I feel like this has been a little gloomy, a little depressing. What we've been talking about, but I think there's a lot of hope too. I mean, you did mention earlier that there are so many Christians,
so many,
and I truly believe that Protestantism and can be a stepping stone to the true faith. It provides a foundation, and then eventually you'll find which is what many people do. They find themselves going into the Catholic Church later. So there's not only a movement within the Catholic Church, but there's, you know, a movement with Christianity in general. And I think whatever we are doing currently, it has its areas where it's not working. Maybe I don't want to say it's not working, but there are negative areas to our country and there are positive areas. And I think the prayer and what we are doing is working to a certain extent. So there is hope. And I don't know. So you don't have to be completely discouraged and think that, you know what, our country's already too far gone. What's the point? I think there's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah.
And God is very powerful, and we have our Lady too, which more people need to beg for her intercession.
Yeah. No, God wins at the end. God wins. God wins every day. God wins in every moment. But we know how the story goes. We know how it's going to go. God wins. So that doesn't mean be lazy and do nothing, right? But yeah, of course you should still be hopeful. You should not despair. To despair is a major sin. It's probably just as bad as presumption. To presume you will be saved is as bad as despairing that you will not be saved. And so, yeah, we have been talking about, I guess, more negative things, but it's not meant to be negative, right? It's supposed to be encouraging. It's supposed to be motivating, because everybody can become a saint. Everybody has that ability through our Lord Jesus Christ, if they live in conformity with Christ. They will become a saint. That should be hugely motivating. And because most people decide not to, that's sad. It should still be motivating because they can do it if they want to, if they desire to, if they try. And there's so many signs when you look around. There's a lot of bad things happening in the world, but there's a lot of good things too. So many people finding Christianity, so many people finding tradition, so many people, even just on a natural level, even not even from a Christian point of view, but just on a natural level, there's been like a resurgence of more, I guess, like naturally stoic, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess like people are drawn more to like the stoic side of things and less hedonistic, like more and more than there has been in the past, and like that's a good thing. There's a lot of signs to show that we're trending in a positive direction, but it's not going to be overnight. And if you take that for granted, any progress we have made is going to completely stop in its tracks and reverse. So we have to keep grinding. We have to keep going. We have to become even better, even more, pray more, sacrifice more, more reparation, more love, more charity, more faith. But we're moving in the right direction in some ways. And if we want to continue moving in the right direction in every other part of the world where maybe we're not doing so good, if we want to fix that, we have to keep going and not despair. Because as soon as you despair, you stop and then you go to hell. Because you despaired that you were going to go to hell, and you caused yourself to do it because you said, oh, it's not worth it. It's not worth it to keep trying. It's not worth it to keep trying to save the country. Oh, the country, like if I, join the military, I'm just fighting for Israel. It's like, okay, so you just do nothing and you just sit around and just wait for the collapse of the nation, or you go out there and try to have some kind of influence and save it. And you might fail. Yeah, we might fail in saving the country. That's true. That's just a reality. We have to acknowledge we might fail, but the resurgence of what comes afterwards, if we live a good life, is going to be even greater to begin with, right? Because this country is not perfect. It never was. It wasn't founded on perfect values. It wasn't founded on perfect morals. And so there's always room for improvement, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't say that to say like you shouldn't love the country because of those things, but there's room for improvement. Like we should not want a separation of church and state. We should want a beautiful marriage of church and state. Not to where they're the same thing. They are distinct things, but Christianity should influence the state. 100% it should. Because it's true, good, and beautiful. And yeah, anyways, sorry, kind of rambling. Totally ranted off topic, dude.
No, I think it was on topic. I mean, overall, I guess to kind of summarize, obviously, rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. Pray for the repose of his soul. I think a lot of people are waking up, and a lot of people have good intentions. Just keep those good intentions. It's not all bad. It's not all gloomy, but be loving to your neighbor, especially maybe those people that are a little bit more categorical and tribal and very, I guess I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but they're ready to act on their emotions and their beliefs a little bit, too quickly. So pray for these people. Don't be afraid to show them love and charity. And yeah, let's just hope this tragedy never happens to anybody else. And pray for the ultimate kingship of Christ as it should be on earth.
That's right. Yeah. Definitely pray for Charlie Kirk, seriously. and his family. And yeah, I guess I'll wrap it up too on my side. Just lead with charity. I think if there's one thing that we can take from Charlie Kirk on a natural level is that he led with charity. He led every conversation with charity, and we should lead our lives with charity as well. So, alrighty, guys. Well, Nick, appreciate it. Sorry for not getting together last weekend, but I'm glad we could do it this weekend. I hope this conversation was enlightening and was beneficial. And to anybody that hears the conversation, we'd love to hear what your thoughts are as well. So let us know in the comments. But until next time, God bless.
Yep, God bless. Everybody have a good one.